was, in my simulation, it occurred almost half an hour after 11 a.m., which was the peak, which is the start of that 1 hour 92 millimeters. I don't know exactly how, on a minute-by-minute basis, what is the shape of the rainfall height, but definitely we have only about 30. I mentioned about 5 meters per second. Actually, that area is a very steep slope. You have the Marikina River, you have the Nangka River, and then the Montalban River. Those are 3 rivers that we're talking about here. Very steep up to Santo Niño. Within 30 minutes, you get this big flow. You have a question?
Hello, Ana Gonzalez, graduate of College of Architecture, UP. I appreciate the presentations insofar as presenting us an idea of peak times and flows so that we can have an early warning system in place. My question has to do with the planning issues around the flooding. How much do you think is the role of built-up areas and also obstructions and all that on the flooding situation? And number 2, I'm glad you mentioned natural versus engineering solutions to the flooding problem.
Natural accretion versus reclamation.
Right, meaning because there are systems such as ecological restoration and eco-engineering. Yeah, so that means we'll have to analyze the river system for areas which could be, well, sorry na lang, potentially could be reclaimed, meaning going back to their natural, if they were floodplains in the past, perhaps that could help also in the restoration process, or also for preventing future tragedies from occurring. So yeah, that's my...
So I'll try to maybe pick up the questions, but you know, in flood disaster management, you have the components of prediction, forecasting, and then early warning, and then you can have preparedness, then you can get into mitigation, response, recovery. Now, as far as the results here, it can really be used for real-time prediction and forecasting, because this was an unsteady flow model. I can even run this every 5 minutes, you know, and then provide a real-time forecast. Not only, of course, given the rainfall, we have good rainfall forecast that you input in the hydraulic model to come up with the time and space. In fact, you have a time and space dynamics or description of the flood flow. Now, once it gets flooded, that's in real time, of course you can provide reliable early warning system. And then I think the gentleman that was asking about how do you make forecasts of flood management and how do you disseminate that? Maybe you can have rainfall thresholds. If you have a rainfall so much already accumulated over time, you have like the markings in the Marikina river banks, especially if you are drinking in the river banks. If that's the elevation, you can have a warning like 1, 2, 3 sirens, and you have to go up 2 meters higher. If it's going to be 5 long tones, you know, you have to go like 5 meters higher, but you have to have like evacuation routes and so on. So in real time, you can really come up with given rainfall thresholds and given actual, because the rainfall threshold, you might have more lead time as opposed to forecasting the river rise and so on. Now, but anyway, going back to, now you have mitigation. When we look at flood control management, there are 2 approaches, structural and non-structural. So based on long-term studies, I mentioned about long-term studies, you can really have a combination. Like here I mentioned about modification of waterways. Maybe there's an engineering approach that has been the traditional one where you put flood walls, but then once the flood wall, once you have a flood wall, the river, the water inside the river goes up. Once it topples, I mean it spills, then you're in trouble. It cannot even go out. That's what happened to Katrina. You have lots of, not so much rainfall, but there were areas, vulnerable areas where the dike failed in the Mississippi. Because like we are in New Orleans, you could be like 2 meters lower than the river water. So that's quite but anyway, here what we were saying is that you have a combination of non-structural. Instead of maybe fighting the river, maybe you can allow for, the natural river course. Let the river run its course. Like should you leave the meanders, the floodplains that is outshaded the meanders, as parks or something that is for non-residential area. I think the Provident Village for sure. If you look at you can debate with a fluvial geomorphologist, even a river engineer for that matter. It's really a floodplain. You cannot fight. Now, unless you wanted to spend so much money, and sometimes if you want to develop that, are you willing to spend and invest for flood control, like building a high dam? I'm saying a dam rather than a backward for the subdivision. I think that's what they have. They have about 2 meters diking from the Marigin River, and then to protect the village, they just have like the normal concrete hollow blocks wall, which is really like, my cousin Leonie, during the flood, he was inside the soil flooding. What he did was to do it by hand and let the water flow out to his neighbor, It's just like that. So it's really very easy.
It was flooded anyway.
Much more 5 meter per second or even 3 meter per second forces. And speed squared, that's the force that that is about 5 meters high. So you have a combination then of non-structural. In that case, let the river run its course. Now the other issue was local drainage. A lot of subdivisions, even I live in a subdivision here in Commonwealth, and I got flooded about this much. Why? Because I live in the lower part. The drainage was obliterated because there was a new subdivision the other side, so they clogged it. So what happened was that the water pooled, and then there was nowhere to get out. And then at about 12 o'clock, suddenly there was a dam break. Actually, it's the fence, the barcode broke. So we have like in about 1 minute, the water in my house was disappeared. All of a sudden, what happened? There was a house on the other side. All the debris went into the house, inside the living room. They were watching TV during that time, they said. So one of the ladies died. She got virtually drowned. So I think we have a lot of those problems, local drainage. So you have to deal with the local flood inflows, and then how to bring it back to the river, or bring it to the river, our esteros and rivers, and how to efficiently move them. We have a lot of obstructions. The Mangaan floodway I showed it to you, they were informal settlers, whatever you call them, but they are like roughness elements, as far as I call it concerned. These are a lot of roughness elements, taller than me, and so on. So that's quite a, impediment to the flow. So you're talking about, first there are areas that you cannot develop. Otherwise, are you willing then to invest to give a level of protection to the people around that area, of maybe equivalent to 100-year return period flood? The other thing I noticed, by the way, is that in our flood control projects, like the Pasig Marikina, it's only designed for a 30-year return period flood. The West Mangaon floodway on the lakeside part is based on, the dike of the West Mangaon is for a 40-year return period flood. Maybe we have to rethink in terms of, like a lot of US cities I've seen, I've done some work in California, it's always a 100-year return period flood. Of course, we have to have money, but are we willing, or are we really going to invest that much to give a level of protection associated to a 100-year return period flood? I think so. We should. We owe that to people. But again, there is associated, if you look at the blogs or the Facebooks or whatever you have in the web now, you have like corruption, they say, why it is allowed, etc., etc. So, yes, don't leave it to the river if you don't have money to invest and provide a level of protection that's good enough. And then of course local drainage is a different issue. So subdivisions I mentioned, like what we did, I think it's just irresponsible for the other subdivision to plug it. They didn't realize that, well, they had these flood waters in a matter of a few seconds also from our side. Thank you very much.
Sino ba yung developer ng subdivision ninyo?